I'm Justin Davis, and this is Drone Camps RC. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin, and today we're going to talk about something that might actually help your build go a little bit easier. I have something new here from DALRC, and this is an engine 40 amp speed controller, and it's a 4-in-1 speed controller, and it goes along with this F405 flight controller, and it's pretty easy to set up. It just plugs in on the bottom, and you'll have to do some soldering. It has 8 little pins right here that plug in, but it comes with grommets, some little rubber dampening, and some longer posts that go through this entire stack with some little fasteners on the very bottom for attaching to the bottom of the quad. We're also going to recommend a new frame that came out from Armattan today. I'm going to show you in this video. So this will be a nice combo, and I'll show you something new from HGLRC as well. They have a really awesome DVR VTX that came out. But first, let me show you the DAL products that I have. This is kind of like an all-in-one solution video today for you guys, and just to give you some exposure to some new stuff you might not have seen before, but a pretty cool product here from DALRC. And we'll go ahead and start out looking at their engine 40 amp. You can run that ESC combo from 2 to 5S, and I'm not sure why you would run it 2, but most people are going to run this on 4S 1300 batteries, which is pretty much the standard in FPV racing. You can also run it up to a 5S battery, a 5S 1300. It'll fly that all day long, but you have a burst up to 50 amp on here, and it's also BL Heli 32, which is nice, and you can run it on D-Shot 600 all the way up to 1200 on your motors. We also have some new motors that just came in as well from Emax that I'm going to show you in this video. So it's kind of like a mashup video. We're going to go ahead and have some fun first with this engine 40 amp. I'll show you a little closer look at this. So I saw this one a few months ago online, and immediately looked different than a lot of 4-in-1 ESC combos out there, mainly because of this giant heat sink they have here. It kind of looks like something from Star Wars, but you have motor 1 tabs right here, motor 2, motor 3, and motor 4. So 3 motors come from each wire. You're going to solder those up and put each one out on the arm of your quad. Back here you have the negative and positive terminal pads for hooking up your battery wire that's going to go back with your XT60 on there. And it does have the 8-pin harness right here that's going to plug into the bottom of the flight controller, so you'll get power and you will get the motor signal all set up in this. So no need to use the harness that came along with it. There's a little harness here that plugs in, and you can use this if you're using something else. If you decide not to use the DALRC F405, you can actually use this wire harness along with it and get your signal wires coming up that direction to your flight controller. This is kind of a nice option. So they give you either option for this 4-in-1 ESC. And that wire harness that I was talking about just plugs in right here, and this is the diagram for it. It shows you where everything is in the harness layout. So you have your current sensor there, 5-volt motor 1 down here, 2, 3, and 4, your VCC and ground at the very bottom. And this is the motor layout looking at the 4-in-1 ESC from the bottom. So if you look at it like this on the schematic, it's kind of like flipped upside down. So you have motor 1 here, 2, 3, and 4 there. But normally in BL Heli, it's just set up like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this guy is pretty much a standard 30 by 30 setup for 5-inch race quads, and it weighs about 16 grams or so, it says here in the manual, but it also bursts up to 50 amps. So it's a pretty nice burst on this ESC setup. And it also comes with this guy, and this is nice. This is a little capacitor, and you can trim these off just a little bit. And once you have your battery wire coming off the back, you can get a blob of solder going and just go ahead and solder this straight to your battery terminals. Just make sure that you have the right side on. You'll see that negative on this side right here, and the other side will be your positive side. So you're going to solder it up just like that after you trim those wires. So this is the flight controller they offer, and it's the F405. It has a little arrow pointing this way, and your USB port's there for beta flight. And they have this little boot button right here. It's actually labeled on the bottom too. It says boot right here. You see those 2 tabs that it's soldered to. and your buttons on right on the side, pretty easy to access there. You do have your harness here for some other options I'll go into in a little bit. You have this rail up at the very top, which is going to be for your camera, and over on the side here we have some more stuff for a VTX and other accessory mounts right there, and some other stuff for your beeper and your 5-volt LEDs back on this bottom rail. But I'll zoom in a little bit closer, and we'll start with this top rail. I'll show you what that is, and then we'll do the side and then the bottom. So now you're looking at that front rail, and you can see here you've got a 5-volt or a 9-volt option, and there's a bridge right here. If you want to use a 5-volt option, you can bridge this to over this 9-volt over to 5, and then you're going to change it down to 5-volt, which is a nice option there. Also down below here you have where your camera is going to go, so your video signal line is going to go in there. That's usually going to be your yellow wire, red wire here, and your black wire here. And usually ground on a lot of flight controllers is going to be a square tab. It's nice that they made these circular for the positive rolls, and the video signal wire is usually round as well. So over here you have current sensor wire there, your 5-volt in, and you have motor 1, 2, 3, and 4 tabs there if you're using an optional signal wire setup, and you have VCC and ground there. And now you're looking at that right hand side of the flight controller, and we have some other stuff here. We have other options for adding things. We have the grounds rail right here. We have 3-volt for any type of spectrum type receivers. We have a 5-volt there. We have RX2, TX2, RC, RSSI right there, and PWM6 and 5 just below it. We have another ground here, 5-volt and 9-volt switch there in case you want to drop it down to 5-volt, which is a super nice option. You have your positive there. You have your VTX, which is going to be your video signal wire going there, TX5 and RX5. And last but not least, we have this side rail back here, and this is all the way at the back right here. You have your buzzer right there in the middle, and that's different than what I've seen before, but negative wire goes there, positive wire goes here. You have your ground, which is also square here, 5-volt for LEDs, your B negative, B positive, RX4 and TX4 there, and you have another wire harness over here on the left hand side. And the weight on this flight controller is only like 6 grams. It is a super lightweight flight controller. It feels really kind of feather light in my hands, and even including the grommets on there. But I think this one will be a nice flight controller if you're looking for something for your first build. It already has Betaflight OSD on here also, which is pretty nice, and it does have the standard 30.5 by 30.5 mounting holes, which is pretty much a standard in the race community. And when you plug both of these in, it looks like this right here. It's a pretty small stack, and I think this HGLRC VTX combo, DVR combo right here would be a nice thing to put right on top of this, especially in that Armattan frame that I got. And I just got this in the mail a couple days ago, which is super sweet, and I just put it together real quick to show you guys the way this quad looks. And from the top, it's nice because a lot of people want flat top for riding a battery on top, and maybe a GoPro here. Your VTX coming off the back, you have plenty of holes back here for mounting zip ties to bring your antennas up, and you could do a little TPU mount back here if you wanted to 3D print something. Have your VTX antenna coming out the back here, so it doesn't break off. It doesn't look like really they want you to flush mount anything to it. That hole is actually a little bit bigger than a lot of the antenna mount holes are, so I'm not a big fan of mounting right to the frame, so I really wouldn't suggest that. You can kind of break them off in a crash, and that can damage your antenna. But what's really neat about this frame too, and I'll just pop these 4 screws on the top and I'll show you what it looks like underneath here, because he has some options. You notice right away that my camera settings right here for the sidewalls, they have 2 options. They have center plate and one on the outside for snapping this in. And this is nice because you can use a micro style camera with these sidewalls, or you can use a full size run cam or any other type of traditional standard size FPV camera with this frame. And they also give you a couple extra parts in here, which is kind of nice. They give you an extra side plate for your camera, and they give you an extra sidewall that goes in the very back. And they do have holes back here in case you need to run any type of zip ties or do any type of 3D printed mounts. You could just run those right through there. I'm pretty sure there's some Armattan TPU mounts on the Thingiverse that you can print out. All those files are free if you have a 3D printer. You probably already know that, of course, but Armattan frames are nice. If you haven't seen them before, you should definitely check out his frames. He sent me this just to check out on the channel. He didn't ask me to do a review or anything. He said he just wanted me to check out his frame and let him know what I thought. And I think so far that the carbon fiber looks really, really nice and high grade. It doesn't feel rough or edgy like some of the other manufacturers coming out of China. It feels really nice and smooth in my hands. It doesn't feel like I'm going to get a splinter, which I get these carbon fiber splinters all the time, but these two side rails back there pop out, and there's not a lot of rails hiding everything inside this quad, so it's kind of nice and easy to access things. And you have several different mounting options there on the side of those camera walls. Look at that. Tons of different spots to put your screws through for your cameras. So plenty of options there on the sidewalls, and you don't have a smaller 20x20 hole through here, which is kind of a bummer for this frame, because you could definitely put a 20x20 stack on here with as high as some of the ESCs are coming now from HGLRC. These guys are making some super high grade, like 40 amp 4-in-1 20x20 stacks, and that's a really nice setup. But if you look at the bottom of this frame, this is a really nice detail. All the arms are replaceable, so it is a replaceable arm X frame, but they do have slots through here for you to get your driver in if you need to get to your flight controller or take things on and off, which is really nice. You don't have to take this bottom plate off. Some of the manufacturers don't put holes in the bottom plate. You have to take the entire quad apart to get to this bottom plate to remove your flight controller, because sometimes you have to put that screw up from the bottom and come up just to make sure that top mount right there where your 4-in-1 ESC is sitting, to be able to pull that off. So that's kind of nice that they thought about that. But let's take this and move it to the side now, and let me show you what's new from HGLRC. And I haven't even taken this out of the package yet, but I've been hearing all about this, and it's pretty nice little setup here. It just goes on the very top of your stack, and I have plenty of room in that Armattan quad to do that. I'm just going to add a couple more standoffs, and then I have this VTX on the top with a DVR, which is super sweet. Let me zoom into that for you and just let you check this out. And this is some seriously nice hardware right here. It does have an MMCX connector, which I love. LED is built in right there, and this just pops on the back. These are way better than these smaller ones they were using sort of last year. They pop off. We had to hot glue them on, and they would just continuously pop off. And notice it does have a right turn right there. That's supposed to give you a little bit better signal. You're just going to bend that wire and bring it back to the back of your quad frame. Now you can do it two ways. You can mount it to your frame with this little mount right here, or you can do a TPU mount, which is probably the best option for this, because the TPU mount is flexible and it's just going to bend on you and not snap off. So your antenna is more likely to survive any of the real hard impacts with that setup. But on the very bottom of this, you do have a spot for SD card to go in the bottom there, a micro SD card, and it looks like we have 25, 100, 200, and 500 milliwatt. So this thing is cranking all the way up to 500. You can get way out there. I believe it also does have pit mode for racing. You can start it up in like 0.1 milliwatt, set your VTX channel without bothering anybody else on their bands. And if you look at the sides over here, this is a pretty easy setup. It kind of reminds me of the RunCam split, but it says channel and band right here. So you're going to press it once to change channels. You're going to long press it for 2 seconds to 3 seconds to change bands. And then you're going to long press it even longer, like 6 to 10 seconds. And that's going to change the display on your LED to change the power settings. And then down at the bottom right here, we have a record button, and it's going to flash when it's recording. So that's a pretty easy setup right there. And to power this guy, this runs on 7 to 26 volts. So you can run a wire coming up from your flight controller, whichever one you decide to use, and you can run it any type of way. You could even run this off of your battery terminal, off the back of your 4-in-1 ESC. So you could come straight up with a wire there into this, and it's going to be completely fine. It does have a built-in LC filter there, so you should get a pretty clean signal. You also have a ground, 5 volt ground there, V1 and IRC there as well. And this is the version 1.0 of this VTX DVR, so it is recording 640 by 480. It's not 1080p like some of the other ones out there, but 640 by 480 is not going to be too bad. I've seen some of the video that it records, and once I get this on a quad for you guys, I'll show you some of the video. You also get some stickers in their kit, and you get a little schematic for your channels and your bands, and you get all the information and the specs on this VTX. Let's see the pin number layout, the 7 to 26 volt ground 5 volt video, and IRC, by the way, is IRC tramp if you're using any type of tramp setup. And they also give you some hardware and some standoffs, some little plastic nuts there to raise your stack up and put this VTX on there. So they give you pretty much everything you need with that bundle. That's a pretty nice offering from HGLRC, kind of cool. And it does have an RP SMA female port on the very end of this right here, so you'll need that type of antenna to put on the end of this DVR VTX. And to go a step further, we have a Nano GTX VTX here, and this is running 5.8. So I'll pull this out. You have that little tiny connector, which I'm not a huge fan of, but you could put this on a brushless micro. So you brushless micro guys, you're gonna love this. Look how small this VTX is. This is super duper tiny. You could put this on something sub 100 millimeter, and that's like the smallest VTX I might have ever seen. Check that out. That is super tiny. I'm just going to zoom into that so you guys can see that a little closer. This is crazy, 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 crazy small. It's a good thing I have a 4K camera now for my studio for you guys. But I'm just going to show you this pin layout they have here, the tab layout. You've got your button here for changing your channels. A little tiny button there, and that's super, super tiny. Now over on this side, and I can just barely see this, I'm just going to have to get the schematic here and open that up so I can get this right for you guys. It's really, really hard to see. So over here, let me get this the right way. This thing is so tiny. Starting at the very bottom, you have a 5 volt in right there. Ground is the next one over, RX, and you have a 5 volt out, ground, and then video on the very last one right there. So to power it down on that end, and your 5 volt out over here if you want to go out, and you have the video option there on the very end. And up here just above the channel and band and power selection button right there, and just above the channel and band button right here, you have two little LEDs, and the first one's going to be your power LED, and it's going to be red when it's lit up, and your channel and your frequency LED. So there's actually three of them right there. There's a red, blue, and green. Red is power, blue is channel, green is going to be your frequency. And if you decide to change the power, it is changeable from 25 milliwatt to 50 milliwatt. And the way it's going to work is on the power indicator, it's going to flash once for 25 milliwatt, twice for 50 milliwatt. And I think they have it wrong in their manual because it both says one flash, and I think it should say one flash and then two flashes for 50 milliwatt here on that red LED. Now if the light is solid red, it's going to mean that it's in that low pit mode for you. So long press on this button to get out of pit mode and change it to 25 and 50 milliwatt. And also inside that pack, besides the information here, the guide that they give you a schematic for everything. You get some cables here, which is super great. These are these silicone cables. They're not plastic coated, which is great because they won't melt and burn when you're soldering these on. And for some real size scale difference, look at this. This is the DVR VTX next to the Nano. So major size difference here between these two. That is incredible. And talk about new stuff, check this out. This is Emax's newest line of motors. I have right here some of the brand new motors, 2206, 2300 kV. I have the 2206. These are the 2700 kV motors. I have the 2306 big boys right here, and these are 2400 kV. So you have all the way down to 2300 kV on this side. If you wanted to run something a little lower kV, or you want to run the sort of higher kV, the 2700s, if you want a higher RPM, those are nice. They do come in clockwise and counterclockwise, so you're going to have to pay attention to that when you buy these, or you're going to have to reverse them inside BL Heli. That's not a problem. But let's check out the 2206s right here, and these are pretty much all going to look the same. They are rated for 4S, and let's see how much they weigh. They weigh 26.7 grams without the silicone wire. That's interesting. It does have an M5 prop nut on the very top, and that's pretty much standard out there. And if I know Emax, they give you two types of screws, which is great. 3mm arms is awesome, and they give you 4mm arms. So that will fit my Armattan drone over here, because this quad frame is actually 4mm on the bottom. So I'll be using those 4mm screws there, and I get one prop nut there, which is red, which I like. I like that a lot. And I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but Emax does give you a little tiny bolt that comes in the pack and a washer. And that's for the very bottom of where the motor connects to the shaft. So this one actually has a little tiny nut down there holding this whole thing together. Much better than the C-clamps. The little C-clips are kind of annoying. Sometimes they fly off and they're lost forever. If this one flies off, you have a backup, which is nice from Emax. Ooh, okay, now we get to look at the candy a little closer up. It does have a hollow core motor stem right here, and that's really pretty standard out there. And wow, look at the coils in this. They look super thick. That's a really nice wound stator inside there. That's a really nice looking coil setup. You can see magnets going all the way around the outside. This is a nice looking motor. It feels pretty solid right here where the wire harness goes into the bottom. And sometimes I get a new motor and I really don't like the way it feels on the bottom. And some of the ones that move too much, they end up snapping off or breaking pretty easily. But this feels pretty solid. You've got those 3 wires coming off the end here. That's going to go to your 4-in-1 ESC, and it's nice they give you long enough wire to accommodate some longer range style arms if you're running, like, say, something like the 7-inch prop. But these are looking pretty nice. They've got their Emax logo on the side, RS2 there, 2206, 2300, race spec 2. Let's take a look at the next motor up, and that one is the 2206 2700 kV, and this one's going to run on 3 to 4S as well, running 5 to 5.5 inch props. It says it can handle 5.5 inch. Looks exactly like the other one, except these are 2700, and I love how low profile these are. The little pancake style motors, super wide across here and nice and low profile. It sits way up there, the motor stem. It's a pretty nice looking motor. Let's check out this next one in the lineup. This is the big guy. A little more power on this one. And what does this one say it can run? This one's also rated for 4S, 26.6 grams. And that other motor actually weighed, let's check out the weight on those last ones we looked at. Those are 26.7. So this one's actually a little bit lighter, the 2306, than that 2206, which is interesting. 2306, 2400 kV. These would go great on that Armattan. Right on the end of there, just like that. That'd be a nice looking setup for this race quad. Sort of red anodized, kind of trademark Emax look here. But all of their motors are really reliable if you're just getting into the hobby. They are a pretty good price for these motors, and they're also some of the most reliable motors that I run. There's other way more expensive brands. You can spend $40, $45 on a motor, and I've had motors that are that expensive that actually got just a little bit of a hit, and they're really super fragile. I've had bent shafts and things like that with other brands, but Emax is a really super durable motor. I can't stress that enough, that these motors are extremely durable, and I've seen other people that are friends of mine that are pro racers just really hash these out on the side, all kinds of scratches and beat up, and even though they got a little bit beat up, they're still running. Now if you get a dent in the side of this, you're obviously done, but this exterior on this motor is actually pretty hardcore and pretty durable. But this will be good on any 4S setup for a quad racer, some track racing. 2306 is is going to get you a lot of speed. But I'm not sure that you can run these on 6S. So if somebody knows that this can run on 6S, let me know, because I do have some 6S ESC setups I'd like to build this year. But that's pretty much it for what's new lately, guys, and there's a whole bunch of stuff all over my bench now, and I had a lot of fun showing you all of this new gear that I got in. And stay tuned, because coming up on the channel we have an awesome Get Up Cam review. This is a new camera that's coming out as well, and this is an action cam 4K camera. Other friends have seen me use this on the road trips, and I've used it everywhere on my wings and on my 5-inch race quads, and the footage is just really beautiful. This is around $100 camera. It's a little bit long for my standards for a camera. It's a little longer than the Runcam 2 and the Mobius cam, but hey, I have 4K on here, so a really nice camera. I'll try to put a link down below for these as well. I think you guys would really appreciate the footage that this little camera can get. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching again, and that's what's new for this week. More stuff to come next week. I'll try to do a what's new video for you guys every couple weeks or so, maybe even every week if this much gear keeps coming into my shop. But thanks again for subscribing and hanging out with me and checking out all the new stuff. Please do check out some of these links down below, because some of these companies will really appreciate your business. Thanks again. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one.